All right, Miles, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams here for a little bit. This is a team 2 years off of their Super Bowl victory. They still have a lot of talent, but they're making huge moves already early in this offseason. I know Rams fans may be a little bit concerned. There's actually a genius behind the madness rolling with the Rams moves right now, Miles. And I think whatever LA is doing, it is 100% the right move to get this team back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Nick, and we're only 1 year removed from the Rams being the world champs, being Super Bowl champions, and that was a great year. There's a lot of star players on this Rams team. Specifically, you look like a guy like Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. They're stars in their own right. But throughout history, there's been a lot of great players as well. That's why we want to know in the comments below, who is your quintessential Ram? Who is the guy when they put on the Rams uniform, you think of that image in your head? Who is the quintessential Ram? Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, what kind of moves are going on down in Los Angeles?
Yeah, so obviously the Rams earlier this offseason, there's been rumors, and they seem to be substantiated at this point that they're potentially shopping Jalen Ramsey. Bobby Wagner seems to be, mutual separation between the Los Angeles organization, and the Rams are moving off some other players as well. According to Pro Football Rumors, the Los Angeles Rams have already made their intentions clear with linebacker Bobby Wagner. And other cost-cutting moves are expected to come as well. This will include a parting of ways with pass rusher Leonard Floyd. This is according to Rams Digest on Fan Nation, reported Allen Robinson to seek trade in another salary cap dump from the Los Angeles Rams. All right, Mike, so what does this mean? At first glance, I'm sure a lot of Rams fans who see these stories are like, whoa, are we just blowing up the rosters? This is a total rebuild. No, that's not the case at all. So when I'm going to take a step back here and just bear me with a little bit here, Mize, there are basically three ways to run and build a team, right? If you treat it like and all these teams are businesses, right? So it's sort of the same dynamic there. There is the buy low and sell high. That's Bill Belichick, right? He brings in veterans who are at the bottom of their career, it seems like. He gets them for cheap. They get re-elevated and he dumps them. Randy Moss, Darrelle Revis are great examples of this, right? That's just the Belichick method. Then you have the Eagles method, which is all about, wheeling and dealing, just trying to flip capital really quick and easy, just trying to go for the, take advantage of a market inefficiencies, right? That's sort of like a miner, like a gold miner, like someone who's trading that kind of stuff, right? So that's what the Eagles do, right? They sit there and say, hey, this team is, they're trying to make a big move for a quarterback. They're trying to trade up. I'll make them give me a lot of draft picks so they can take my pick and I'll just accumulate a lot of assets. And that way it'll put me in a good position. Hey, the Titans want to get rid of AJ Brown. They're really desperate to move off of him. We'll give him a first round pick and we'll be happy to get AJ Brown. He'll be a star with us. That's the Eagles. The other third way to be successful is what I kind of talk about is what I call the activist investor. These are guys who look at talent around the NFL, guys they think are underappreciated and undervalued, and think if we move this guy into our system with our coaching staff and our players, we can bring out the best in them. And you see that perfect example is Matthew Stafford, floundering in Detroit, all the talent in the world, couldn't get over the hump. I don't even think he ever had a playoff win with the Lions. They spend a lot to get him. They bring him in. They bring him under the McVay system, the McVay offense, everything with the Rams. They win a Super Bowl, right? And that's what the Rams do. They tried it with Allen Robinson. It didn't work out. They tried it with Jalen Ramsey. It did work out. But as these things run their course, you have to move on. So when investments don't work out, you got to move off that asset so you can make a play for another one. That's how any smart investor works, right? When you're in this space, you try and see if you can make an investment, bring something into the fold, see if you can create value. If you don't create value, you move off of it. That's just the way it works sometimes. You don't bat 1,000. If you do create value, you have to know when to sell and move off it as well. That's what they're doing with Jalen Ramsey in that specific case. So what the Rams are doing here, both with Robinson and Floyd, Robinson was a failed investment, right? They brought him in thinking, hey, we can bring him into this offense. He'll be a star. Didn't really work out. Let's move on from him and try and pick up somebody else. Floyd was a successful investment, but now he's past his prime a little bit. He's obviously on the other side of 30. His production has dropped a little bit. So maybe now's the time to move on to another investment. So that's what the Rams are doing here, Mize. What they're doing is they're recognizing that how they build a team, they're not like the Eagles who are wheeling and dealing, trying to get as many draft picks as possible to flip them for other players. They're not the Patriots who buy low and sell high. They're activist investors. They try and find guys they can bring into the fold, see if they can make it work. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, they move on to the next thing. And that's why I really like what the Rams are doing here, because they're just building space here to make a move for another guy they feel is underappreciated, who they think in their system will be a superstar.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And when you take a step back and are able to look at it, I think it's a really smart move. Floyd, he was okay. I think he's probably propped up a little bit by the dominant play of like a guy like Aaron Donald on that defensive line, give you a little bit more chances at that pass rush. But he's a solid player in his own right. But they can move. They've used him. They've gotten their best out of him. They can move on from him. Same like a guy like Allen Robinson. They invested in him, tried to make it work, didn't make it work like you said. Now they move off of him. Keep your star assets. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, he's still working. you're getting the most out of him. Matthew Stafford, you got a lot out of him. And that could be like a thing they look for in the future. If after this season, the Matthew Stafford, they've gotten all the juice out of that squeeze, per se. Next year, if it doesn't work out quite as well, they could be looking to move on from Stafford. Stafford could retire. I kind of like the method, just getting players and kind of seeing what you can get out of them if your system can get the most out of them, as you said. And I think that describes perfectly what the Rams are doing and why they're doing it. So, no, I agree with you, Nick. It's not a rebuild. They're just moving on from assets that they no longer see a ton of value in and are just trying to get anything out of them that they can.
Yeah, and it's just not my opinion, Miles. If you look at overthecap.com, who I think is a great website, they do a phenomenal job evaluating players versus their cap space. So if you look at Allen Robinson going into next season, his cap number is going to be 18 million, a little bit more. His valuation is 3.3 million. So he's not worth the 18 million, right? So moving off of him makes sense. They made the investment, doesn't work, move off of him. How about Leonard Floyd? Nice player earlier in his career, but he's getting older, right? He's 31 years old now. His valuation, according to Over the Cap, is 11 million bucks. His cap hit this year, this coming year, 22 million bucks. So again, it makes sense. The investment ran its course, so the numbers no longer work out. A player's worth this, he costs this. It's time to move on. That's just smart business, and that's what the Rams are doing here.